Secret level.
So, the second half of part 1 that we've not yet discussed is Unreal Tournament,
Yep.
Warhammer 40k,
Yes.
Pac-Man,
Yes.
Crossfire,
And Armored
and
Core.
Armored Core. Now, this is probably going to be an unpopular opinion.
Oh.
I did not enjoy the Warhammer episode.
At all.
I think that is purely because I know very little to nothing of the Warhammer universe, but didn't do much for me, especially compared to the other episodes.
Damn. I mean, I can understand if you have no concept of the 40k. It's so. The 40k episode is by far, out of both parts, we'll get into rankings later after we've talked about both parts, but it is by far my favourite. I've watched it more than once.
Awesome. And that's all I can do. Like, the beauty of an anthology series like this is not every episode's for everyone. If 40k fans are happy with the episode they got, fucking sweet. I'm so happy for you guys.
From the 40k point of view, like, before I'd watched the episode, it was already showing up on my socials because obviously people had watched it, and I was like having to dodge it because I didn't want to spoil it. But all I'm seeing is people losing their minds at how good it is. So for a little bit of extra lore knowledge here, I think I talked about it when I've talked about Space Marines 2. That there was an animated thing on YouTube called Astartes by a solo guy, and he ended up getting a job at Workshop Games.
Yeah, I do remember you saying this.
People saw this episode, and even I felt this straight away. It was like, this has a strange Astartes vibe to this animation, which is a good thing.
Okay.
And everyone's like, either they've taken inspiration from that. Turns out he got to work on it. He actually has worked on this episode.
That's so awesome.
So he'll have been a small cog in a big machine of a big team. He obviously wasn't like directing or anything, but I am sure they know how much the fans loved Astartes, and he nailed the vibe of what people wanted in a Warhammer animated, and they've probably pulled from that. But as a Warhammer fan, everyone's like, this is what we need as a full project.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong, visually, it was gorgeous.
It's, all the lore, like, just the way they managed to visually sell the Space Marines. Like, they are that brutal. They move that fast. Like, a Space Marine in full armor can run 45 miles per hour. So, like, they've managed to get that weight and power across in the animation, and it's just so much fun. But yeah.
The Unreal Tournament episode.
I enjoyed that one.
Was fucking awesome. Now, it's no secret if you've watched probably more than 2 random episodes of this podcast that I love a little bit of Fight the Power vibe.
Yeah.
However, the way they did this was so much fun.
Yeah.
The notion that the robots have just spent forever getting their ass kicked on one robot's like, fuck that noise no more, is awesome.
Yeah, I loved the way that it was like a robot. They smacked it because it wasn't working properly, which then messed up its coding. And then suddenly it's like, oh, I broke through the firewall. I can now control things and think for myself. The chains are off. And then it's like this idea of, oh, we put on a gladiator-esque show, but we actually really control how this goes. We want a bit of fight, but not much fight. And then suddenly it's like, okay, this guy needs to die now. And it goes
the
wrong.
notion, the beauty of of it is like the woman who's controlling it all. It's like, no, don't pull the plug yet. Let the people begin to root for them, so that when it crumbles, they see how people who get above their station are dealt with.
Yeah, it's all just like a...
She leaves it too long, and the robot becomes unstoppable, and the other robots start to almost believe in this robot, which
he starts
also
like
really
unlocking
cool.
them as well.
Yeah.
And it's like, suddenly this robot is the classic underdog story. The crowd get behind him. They're like, oh, yeah. And then it is basically like watching Gladiator.
Yeah.
But in sci-fi form.
I also enjoyed like some of the ways they showed the combat of him improving. Like I love the drop down from the ceiling and shoot the people. Like
Yeah,
awesome, just
like
so good.
learning the. I also enjoyed, as someone who's played some of the Unreal Tournament games in the past, like the iconic weapons were shown really well. Um, yeah, no, I think that whole little story was really well done for the Unreal world as well.
I completely agree. It was a lot of fun to watch. The action was great. The animation was smooth.
Mm,
Really, really worth the watch. A controversial one that I feel like we both enjoyed.
okay.
Pac-Man.
Oh, I loved Pac-Man.
A lot of people were not big on the Pac-Man episode.
Really?
Yeah, it
I loved
is
it because it was
the most controversial episode.
exactly as we've been talking about. Was like I was like, the fuck was that? But that was a very cool take on Pac-Man. Like the ending moment of it, I was like, because at one point I'm like, oh, they're really stretched kind of what Pac-Man is. This is interesting. And then it kind of ends in such a horror-esque way. And I'm like, oh shit, this is like horror Pac-Man.
Yeah.
It
So a lot of people like this isn't Pac-Man at all. And to them all I can say is, what do you mean?
yeah, what is Pac-Man?
Like, what did you want a Pac-Man episode to be?
The only, I guess, thing that they could have helped make it feel a little more Pac-Man is if it was more like walled maze at times. Like,
Yeah,
so you feel
maybe.
like you're in the lanes and still do the same environments, but show like, even if it's like this, that it's a big open gap, but there's like, you can see in the distance big, giant, tall walls. And there's like maybe yellow fruits or like little dot things or something that kind of
Yeah,
they
maybe.
flavored. But overall, like they've said in interviews, which I guess a lot of people won't have seen pre-show, but like they said they wanted them to go, and Bandai wanted them to push the limit of what is Pac-Man.
Absolutely. And they definitely did that.
Yeah, the
Um,
ending of Pac-Man buzz sawing his way into this guy's back
so brutal.
to then take control of him. Um,
So yeah, but obviously it's not spelled out for you, which is the beauty of a good version of art. The vibe I got was this ball's trying to escape, and the ball is terrifying. It needs to be kept in this what seems to be a prison designed
yeah.
just for it, but it needs a human to get it out,
Well, yeah,
or a living being to get it out.
so my thing was it's like it isn't strong enough to get out on its own. It needs to eat something powerful so it can fight the things to then escape, which is essentially what Pac-Man is. Pac-Man needs to eat the random fruits so then it can actually kill the ghosts. In this turn, the fruit is this guy.
Yeah.
So this guy gets stronger and stronger. He the the Pac-Man is trying to build him up to be more and more powerful so that when he eats him, it's a stronger thing that it's eating. But obviously, it seems each time they fight back and this thing's stuck in this, like you say, it's in a prison and it's trying to escape. So then it's like, well, back to the pods again. We go again.
I also really enjoyed the ghosts having obviously like the coloured like sprites on their
Yeah,
head
to
there,
match the colours of the
and then
ghosts.
they come out of the shadow,
Mm.
and it's just a massive monster, and you're like, holy shit!
I liked the little comment of, uh, you eat them, but don't eat their eyes.
Yeah, you can never eat their eyes.
Which I guess I don't know how they didn't show any of that, but yeah, the
No.
whole like we saw the floating like coloring, like oh, that's one of these ghosts, and how they're going to show him in this. It's the colors; everyone recognizes the different ghost colors. But yeah, the then reveal of this is a huge creature, and it just absolutely wails the shit out of him.
Yeah, terrifying.
I just really enjoyed that it was like a horror take, a very stretch of a Pac-Man world, but like that's the fun of being creative. It's like they've
Yes,
taken the essence of Pac-Man and told it in an entirely new format.
that is exactly it. There is not really much else you can do like that isn't very different from the game.
Yeah, I
So if
mean,
you're gonna have to be very different from the game to make it worth making anyway, why not get different with it?
well, yeah, and even the line that the Pac-Man orb thing is saying is "eat or be eaten." If you distill Pac-Man down to the basic game mechanic, you would say you need to eat or you get eaten by the ghosts.
Yeah, this is
Like
exactly
it's
that.
eat or get eaten. So
I don't think you can do anything less than that without kind of then the question being, what was the point of even doing Pac-Man?
yeah,
Um, One episode that seems to have not been reviewed particularly highly, but I thought was great, was the Crossfire episode.
I thought it was a good kind of military-esque
It was
story.
a bearing in mind Crossfire is like a Call of Duty style game in the sense of you play an
Yeah,
objective against another team. I think they kind of instilled that there was clearly an objective.
yeah,
The match developed, and everyone thinks they're the good guy.
yeah. Well, yeah, they got that that flavor of a team versus team shooter,
Yeah,
and yeah, it was well animated. It was a cool story. I think just the nature of those sorts of games, it, in a world that is so diluted with just military media, it
yeah.
obviously just feels like, oh, kind of a generic military-esque
Oh yeah.
animated
It was
thing.
nothing. It was nothing mind blowing, but it was enjoyable in my opinion.
Yeah,
The acting performances were really good. Very
yeah.
good face and motion capture, whatever they did.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I kind of like some of the bits that you get. We've all played shooters together.
Mm.
I kind of like that they distilled the idea of you shot my friend, and he was like debating whether to like kill him or like get back to the objective.
Well, yeah,
And we've all kind of been there. It's like, oh, get my trade. It's like, no, just play the objective. Play the
yeah.
objective.
You got one person playing objective while one's trying to get trades because the
Yeah,
only thing it was missing was a cheeky little tea bag on a body.
it would have been so funny. It was cool.
If one of
It
them
was nothing
killed him
mind
and
blowing.
dropped a tea bag as a calling card,
But not other than that, no, it wasn't
yeah,
anything special. But I don't think it deserves to be rated a 6.4 out of 10, which is what it is on
oh,
IMDb.
is it?
I'd say every episode's above a 7 comfortably.
Yeah, Armored Core,
Um, oh my god,
another one
Armored
of my
Core was
favorites. I mean,
amazing.
you know, and I've said many times on this podcast, I'm a sucker for mechs.
You are
So,
a big mech loser.
so as as Armored Core as a game, though I've not played the recent one, I love just the IP and
Yeah,
the idea of mechs is sick. To then have mechs with Keanu Reeves,
big value.
yeah, it's like you've just blended. You've got animated Keanu Reeves and mechs, and I'm like, oh, so you've taken Cyberpunk and Armored Core and slammed them together.
Yeah. Now I don't know too much about the Armored Core lore. Is it kind of understood that the pilots of the cores are a little bit fucked up? Or is that a
I
little bit of
don't
creative license they've taken?
remember. It's probably also a bit of a play on the idea of like players in the
Got
where
ya.
humans were like we are the
But
pilots.
the action of like the player character
Mm,
kind of being understood to be Keanu and him just fucking decimating other cores that he was fighting
yeah.
was so cool.
Well, yeah. It's like it was very much. I liked. I liked the whole him being. Oh, I'm the best, which is like a
Yeah.
classic. Like in the newest one, which like those
I
games are very
famously never
Souls
say that while
esque.
playing a game.
It is a case of like Souls esque. You have to beat the bot. Like in any of those games, you have to get to being better than every enemy so you can keep progressing the story. So it's like
Exactly.
him outplaying all these enemies, but then that like story reveal that they are also human and just like him. But then he's like, but it's better to be alone. And he crushes the guy with a mech finger.
It was what? So obviously you got the famous painting of God and David touching finger.
Yeah.
So it was definitely invoking a little bit of that.
It was almost like he was gonna hold it out and like help the guy out, and then he just keeps pushing slowly.
Yeah, crazy. Such a cool episode. I wasn't. I thought I was going to be in a similar boat with this as I was to Warhammer, because I'm aware of the universe, but I've not played it, so I didn't know how much I'd be able to get and enjoy.
Yeah.
But Armored Core had more of a story in the episode that didn't require you knowing too much else, that I think made it more digestible to me.
Yeah, I think it also helped. Like the 40K one didn't have a lot of dialogue. It is all action, and if you understand visually sort of what you're looking at, you know what this sort of story is. Whereas this, obviously, you've got Keanu Reeves talking to this voice in his head because he's a bit fucked up mentally. And the action is obviously like you're watching robots fight. The actions,
you can't go wrong with mechs beating the shit out of each other.
Like this and the 40K were my two like favorite. But yeah, like I mean, for your context for the story of 40K, you have the Titus is from Space Marines 2. He's in that game. He's your main character. So this is, as people predicted, at the end of the Space Marines 2 campaign, you're told as Titus, you've been assigned to a mission with another squadron, which people are presuming is this mission. Essentially, Space Marines are drop shipped onto a planet which is full of heretics, which is these creatures and they are of one of the Chaos Lords, which is like an evil demon lord, essentially. Worshippers of that. Seems like they were going to destroy I forget what that giant statue has a name for it. It was probably like a sealed creature, essentially, and they were going to destroy it. The thing that dropped on them, people don't really know what it is. It's a bit of flavor they've had fun with. Titus being the one to survive it makes sense because he seemingly can survive a load of fucked up shit. But like just the stuff that people loved the most was them dropping in and that fight up to it and them just being like brutal because
the action was kick-ass.
The action was exactly what 40K action should look like. And like him walking through a tank as it drove at him and it just exploded. That is everything a Space Marine should visually seem to be. And they nailed it. And that's why like the fans are loving it so much.
Awesome. But yeah, so that's the end of the first half of Secret Level.